Hey everyone, this is Sandeep and welcome back to Learn React in 10 Days course. First of all, I really want to thank you for all the comments which I'm getting on this course. I think people are expecting, you guys are expecting more and more videos. Some people are asking for 2 videos in a week, but I have a disclosure for you. I work full time, I have a full time job. This is not a primary thing, this is just like, just for a hobby I'm doing. So I've been working in IT industry from last 15 years and I'm trying to share my experience through all these free videos. But I'm not giving you any excuse. I'm working on a model. I really want to release one video a day. That's the goal. That's the dream goal I have for this channel. And I really want to create more and more content for you on variety of topics. I have a lot of topics in my mind. But if you look at my videos, right, they're more detailed and they're like long videos. Even if I'm releasing one video a week or a bi-weekly, maybe one video, I think all those videos are long. They're like 1.5 hour, 2 hours long videos. So it requires some effort. But once again, thank you so much for all those feedback, all those comments. I have a goal of making a video at least once a week. Then I'll move on to creating 2 videos a week. I'll try my best. Give me some time. I'm working on that model, and sooner or later, I'll be definitely able to release more and more videos for on this channel. So coming back to our Learn React in 10 Days course. So what are we going to learn today? So today we are going to learn a very important topic and most in demand topic, I can say, how to connect with API from React. Because obviously when you're going to create web applications, right, you need to connect with API, right? There will be two different set of teams working in a project, probably some of the UI developers, some of the Java developers, or backend developer, I can say. So backend can be any technology. And there will be, your application should be dynamic. And to make it dynamic, obviously you need to know how to work with data, right? That data connectivity, that API request, you should know how to connect with the API. And that's what we are going to discuss in today's video. So let's get into the agenda of today's video. So what first of all, what are we going to make? So each video, every video is practical, right? In every video, I'm trying to create a small application, and I'm trying to give that knowledge, that practical knowledge through that application. So I think doing things is the most important thing while learning anything, and that's the approach I'm taking here. And I am trying to cover a lot of theory around that particular topic also, so that you have a good balance of theory and practice. So the agenda, and the application which we are going to make, this will be really simple application, no configuration required. So I try to keep it really simple so that we can focus on React and communication of React on the server side. So today we are going to make a GitHub card application. So everybody, all the developers, everybody knows GitHub, right? GitHub is a repository, right? Like I have my code with Sandeep repository where, I'm putting all my projects, all my source code, right? So if you want to learn React in 10 days course, so I have all the files, committed on GitHub. So GitHub is just like a source code, a repository where people can go, they can create create their own account. Like I have an account with code with Sandeep, right? You can create your own account. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to interact with this API, a GitHub API, where we are going to connect to GitHub API. We're going to load the data related to the user. So this is JSON file or a JSON data, which we are going to load, and we are going to display that. So how it is going to work actually, when you're going to enter some username here, and when you're going to click on this add card button, we are going to connect with GitHub API, and that will return us that particular user data, and we are going to display that user data in a nice, beautiful card format. So that's how this API interaction is going to work. The topics which I'm going to cover are like how to fetch data, how data fetch works in real world, how we can work with data, how we can create list. Now we haven't seen how to create list, right? So all of these users, they are like list of data, right? We don't have one user, two user, we have list of users. So how to render a list in React, that's what I'm going to cover. Then there is something really important topic about keys, which I'm going to talk, purpose of keys in list. We're going to see the differences between Axios and fetch. So we are going to use Axios for loading the data, connecting with the GitHub API. Then I'm going to talk about async await. This is more of a JavaScript topic. And we are going to do some configuration for our API using Axios configuration. And finally, briefly, I'm going to touch around the refs. So multiple topics, but this application is really going to give you a good idea about how to work with API, how to connect with API using React. So let's quickly get started. So I have my project structure already created. I mean, I have my project created, I can say. I have already put in index.js file. So you just need to run that npx create react app command, and you can give this project name API, and you can get started with this basic rendering template to render our app. So let's get into the app structure first. So if I switch to app structure, this is how I'm going to create different components for my app. And this is really good idea, to have a big picture of your application. So whenever you're going to work on any application, you can use this tool. This is a diagram tool that I'm using online. And you can create these boxes. You can create the app structure for your project. So right now our application is small, but you can apply the similar approach for bigger applications also. So what are we going to have? We are definitely going to have an aggregator, and that is app. App is going to contain different components. So if you come back to our mockups, right, you see this is one of the component, this part, this top part, right? This is my search component where I'm going to enter some input value, and then I'm going to click on add card. So this is one of the component which I can create. So that's a search component I mentioned here. Then when I'm going to search, it's going to return me a card, right? A data related to one user. So this component, right? This John, this is just one component. I'm going to call it card. And we are going to have set of cards, list of cards. That's why I have created a container component for all of these cards. And that component, I'm going to call it card list. So card list is going to have cards. So you can see the hierarchy here, right? App is a main container of our application, main module of our application. Inside that I have search and card list component. So if I come back here, search and card list, this is a second component. And inside my card list, I have card component. So let's get started and create the files for different components with some text values, right? So I'm going to come back. Let me start by creating the app first. And this time, we are going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 components, right? And still this application is small, but I have a good idea, where now we will start creating the folder structure for our applications. I'm going to create the first folder called components, where I'm going to keep all my application components. Okay, so components folder, inside that, first of all, I'm going to create the app component, app.js, and I'm going to import React from React. And we always start with the functional component. That's a good idea. So I'm going to create const app. This will be a functional component. And I just want to tell you one more thing. Like, a lot of people are asking me about uh, not to create class component, but come up with a video related to hooks. So don't worry, I'm going to come up with a one good video around states, around hooks, and that will be again a practical approach to hooks, where we are going to make one project entirely using hooks. Okay, so stay tuned for that video also. So get back to our app, and I'm going to just return a simple div with an app. And let's export it. Default app. And I'm going to import my app here. Import app from, now this time I need to target the components folder, and inside that I have my app file. So let's replace this div with an app. And now if I let me do something like let me make it a GitHub app, go to save it. And if I go back to my application and see refresh, you see that we have our first component created, the app component. Now let's create the other components also. Let's create the search, card list, and card component. Let's do that. Inside component folder only, I'm going to create search.js. And again, I'm going to just import my React from React. And I'm going to create search, which is again a functional component. Let's put a div here where now I have used return here that is not needed, but that's okay. I'm going to keep it like that. Div with search. I think let's go with that syntax because we definitely need to have this. And I'm going to export default search. So we have our search component ready. Let's create this card list component. So I'm going to create a new component card list.js. And this is a good idea, to create a high level structure of your application. So React from React, and we'll create card list. Again, a functional component, which is going to return a div with card list. Let me put a semicolon here. That's good practice, but not needed. Default card list. Save. Let's come back. Let's create one more component, the last component of our application called card. So I'm going to create card again, the new component card.js. And again, I'm going to import React from React. And let's create another functional component called card, which is going to return our div. And I'm going to use this syntax with value of card, text of card, and I'm going to export this as a default card. Looks good. So we have all our components ready. Let's pull in all those components inside app. So obviously I have a div here with GitHub app. So I'm going to put first component here. The first component which I'm going to import here is search from dot slash components slash components slash. Okay, I think we are in the same folder, right? Because app is inside components only. So I need to write like this because I'm searching the same folder, search, and inside that, I'm just going to create the instance of my search component. And let's have another component created. That's the card list. So first of all, we need to import that. Import card list from dot slash card list. And let's create the instance of that card list. Okay, cool. So we have our app component containing all the different components. So I'm going to save my application and now I'm going to go back and refresh. I don't need to refresh basically. Search and card list. So our high level application structure is ready. I can say the skeleton of the application is ready. We have all the components created: app, search, card list, and card. The application structure is ready. I think this is looking good. And this is where we need to reach, right? We need to have something like this, and we need to have all these cards. So I'm going to use semantic UI, and we are going to make this application beautiful in the next part of the video. So I think this is good time to have a quick pause. I mean, taking breaks is really important. You might have seen all this pattern in my videos. Let's have a quick pause, come back, and we'll work on some styling for for the application. Welcome back. So let's continue to work on our GitHub card app. And now in this part of the video, we are going to style our application. So we have this search and card list component, which is like text only right now, but we need to reach this stage where we need to show something like this. We should have a search input where we are going to enter the GitHub user ID, and then I'm going to click on add card, and that's going to show all of these cards here. So I'm going to use semantic UI for styling the application, and I already have that search. So first of all, we are going to style our search component, this part. I'm going to use a template from semantic UI. So you just need to click on this input in the elements, and there is a search input here, which I'm going to use. So if I scroll down, down, and this one. So I like this one. I'm going to use this search. So click on this, and we're just going to copy this from here, and I'll go back to my code, and inside my search component, I need to replace this div with this one. So we just need to do some formatting. I'll try saving, and it doesn't format automatically. Okay, so I just need to replace all of this class with class name. This is okay. We'll have this one here, and let's replace this with the class name. So we have all the styles in place, right? This search text. So now if I save and if I go back to my application, if it auto refresh, we can see that search, but obviously we can't see exactly how it is here, because we need to import the semantic CSS, because this is a new project, and I just realized we need to import that semantic CSS inside our HTML file. And if you see that, we don't have that link here, right? That semantic UI link is missing. So let's search for semantic UI CSS CDN, and I'm going to use this one. So I'm just going to copy this URL and come back to my application index.html. Let's have a link tag here. So link with rel of style sheet, and href will be that URL. I'm going to close this one, save. Now if I come back and refresh, still not coming. Probably I need to restart my application. Let me check once again. I'll go back to my index.html. Let me see if I have used correct syntax. Oh, I'm using the JavaScript file. Sorry about that. So I think I need to use the CSS. So I'm going to copy the CSS URL, and I'll come back and replace this one with the CSS URL. And now I'm going to save. Let's see, it should work. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yes, it's working fine. Now we need some padding, right? And this is looking beautiful, but we don't have that padding or margin here. So I'm going to use inline styles only. So let me close this index.html, go back to search, and I'm going to create some styles here, a style object for the search. So const styles, and inside that styles object, I'm going to put some margin. So I'll have a margin top of say 20 pixel, and I'm going to have some padding too. So let's have some padding of maybe 10 pixel. Let's put a comma, and this style I'm going to apply to this component here. So style is equals to, using JavaScript, I'm just applying the styles. This is one way of styling. You can do inline styling using JavaScript syntax. You can create a separate search.css file also, and you can put all those styles there. But as this is a really small thing, I don't want to create that extra CSS file. I'm putting my styles directly inside here. There's nothing wrong or right here. In big project, this is all about the standard which we are following for any of our project. So the good practice would be, create separate class file separate CSS file and put the class name here. But just to save time and just to keep things simple, I'm using the inline styles. So let's refresh, and you see here, right, our search is looking good. We have some space here, or maybe I can remove the margin top because the padding is playing that role. So let me refresh and I see that this is looking good. So now I'm going to enter some username here, and when I'm going to click on search, and I think we can replace this search with add GitHub card. So I'm going to replace that with add GitHub user, something like this. This is looking good. I can search for a user, like if I want this user, right? I'm just going to search for that user and I'm going to click on add GitHub user, and that's going to create that card. So let's work on the card list. So for card list, I'm going to use again semantic UI, and there is a already semantic UI has something for card. If you see here, we can create card like this with this photograph and with this name. And I need to create cards basically. So I need to have something like this list of cards, right? So let's copy that code structure from here. So I need obviously something like this div. So I'm going to go step by step. First, let's create the parent container for the card list. I'll come back to card list. Let's enter here, here, and let's replace this with that particular div. And let's close this div here. And we need to replace this class with class name. Okay, so this is a card list where I'm showing the cards, but inside that card list, I'm going to have separate card. So obviously this code will go to card part, not in the card list. So I'm going to just write card list here. I'm going to save, and if I go back, let's see if we see any differences. We don't see any differences because we need to add cards also. So I have my card list. Now let's go back to card and put this for the card. So I'm going to use div class name of card. Inside that card, we are going to have this structure, this image and everything. I don't think so I can use this code. Let me go back to card, and inside my card, I'm just going to put this one with the class name of card. I'm going to put another div, a closing div, and inside that, I'm just going to add card. To save. So card list is going to contain the card. So let's try to import one card here. So suppose I'm going to import card from dot slash card. And instead of card list, let's have some cards here, maybe one card. And if I go back now, see that? I can see that one card here, right? And some animation is also coming. I don't know. It's probably because of semantic UI. So we can put more cards if we want, something like that. I can have more cards created. So this is like card one. And let me, oh, that should be actually, I need to pass this label as a prop, but let it be for now. I'm going to create multiple cards. So card, another card. Let's have one more. Save. So you can see, right, different cards I'm showing here. And we don't have cards something like this. So let's see how we can manage that. So right now I'm able to create different cards, and let's see if we can achieve something like this. So I have three different cards here, and probably I need to remove that one, two, three. I mean one, so that will look normal. Okay, let's put some styling, some padding around this part also. I mean this cards. So I'm going to again go back to card list, and I'm going to create some styling here, inline styling here. Styles is equals to, and let's go with padding of say 10 pixel only. That should do the job. And I'm going to put that as a style. is equals to styles, something like this. I'm using inline style. If I go back, now I see they're aligned, right? Looking beautiful. So I think this is the CSS part, the styling part of the application. We have our styles ready, and we are going to move on and now talk about data, how we are going to work with data, how we can connect to the server side. I mean, before connecting on the server side and loading that data, I need to talk about using mock data also. That's really important. So I think again, we will take a quick pause here because the styling part is done for this application. Let's have a quick pause, come back, and we'll move on and we'll talk about data, how actually data fetch work in real world. Yes. Welcome back. So in the last part of the video, we have worked on styling of our GitHub card app. Now let's continue this video, and in this part of the video, I'm going to talk about how actually data fetch work in real world. So let's understand theory behind it. This is going to help you understand making API request from React, or I mean from any user interface to server side. Server side means it's a backend. We call it a backend component. So coming back to my notes, so if you see here, right, I've created some diagrams, some pictures, some images to explain this concept. So if you, in our case, like in our application, what we need to do, we basically, when I enter something here, right, say suppose the username, a GitHub username, and when I'm going to click on this add card button, I need to add that card. And this is how one by one, I can make a list of cards here, kind of different GitHub users which I like or which I want to follow, something like that. This is what we want to achieve, right? So when I come back to this part, right, so I'm going to click on that search, add card, and that's going to return me data related to that particular user, one user at a time, one user, then second, then third. So you think like, now if you look at this application, you see here the local host is written here. So think like this is one computer. So this is more of a computer to computer communication. Now, this is my computer. This is Sandeep's computer, and this React application is running inside Sandeep's computer, and that computer name is localhost. Okay, so this is one computer, and GitHub has another computer. We call it server actually, but I'm just trying to explain, they have their own computer where they have written a program, where they have written a code. Okay, Sandeep, now you want any user, any GitHub user, you do one thing, you connect to my computer. Okay, and there is a way to connect to a computer. Okay, so they will give me a name of the computer, take this name, and inside that computer I have this program written. The name of the program is users octocat. So users and octocat is name of the user which I want to have the data, right? Like in this case, say suppose I want the data for John, I'm going to pass John here, right? Instead of octocat, I'm going to write John here, something like this. So it's like, computer to computer communication. Here on the right hand side, we call it server, basically a GitHub server, and inside that computer we have a program. So basically our React or our UI or our browser is connecting to another computer, and inside that computer it's calling a program, and that program has this address. We call it an address, right? So we are hitting that address and we are getting something back. So it's all about, this is how the data fetch work in real world, right? And this is how the data is coming, and that data has a specific format. We call that format a JSON format, JSON or a JSON. Okay, JSON. So look at here, okay, how this communication is happening. So my React app is running inside my computer. That computer name is localhost. And I'm going to connect with this GitHub computer. So I need name of that GitHub computer, right? Or that server. And that name I have already written here. So this is that API. This is that address. So, and what's the name of that computer? This is that computer name, api.github.com. Okay, so this is that computer name, and inside that computer name, I'm using a program or code called users, and I'm passing the username. So if I don't pass any user, I don't get anything. But if I pass, say, suppose I'll pass John, maybe I'll get something. So I'm getting John's data here. See that? Say, suppose I want code with Sandeep data, right? I can say code with Sandeep also, and I'm going to get back code with Sandeep's data. So this is nothing but this address we need to hit, and this is the program which I'm going to call to get the data. So this is what we are going to do in the next part actually of this video. First of all, I'm going to tell you, because we are not directly going to interact with server side initially, because when you work in a real world, we work something like this. We have team of UI developers and we have team of backend developers, Java developers. We work together. So in our case, say suppose when Java developers or any backend developer, basically Java, Python, PHP, whatever server side language is there, they when they're working on the service, so it will take some time, right? Because we work in an agile way where we pick up the stories, and there are teams, UI developer teams, Java developer teams. So while the Java developers or any backend developers are working on this service, I'm going to use hard-coded data, because I'm not going to wait, and I'm not going to write my UI code, my React code, right? I can get started with mock data. And I have an agreement with these backend developers. Okay, you return me data in this format. Getting my point? So first of all, we are going to start with mock data. What I call is a mock data, and then we will once we have connectivity, or once we have used that mock data, connecting with service is like a cakewalk. I'm telling you, that will be really easy. I mean, this is a format I'm following in my organization, in my applications. This is really good. Start with the mock data, and then you get connected with the actual service. So let's start with the mock data. So I'm going to generate some mock data with some of the user, like I'm going to start with John maybe. So this is how I'm getting the John data, right? So I'm going to create, copy and paste all of this JSON, and I'm going to have my mock data created inside my application. So if I go back to my code, I'm going to create one more folder where I'm going to create my mock data. So I'm going to create a new folder called utils. Okay. And inside that utils, I'm going to create a new file called, probably I'll name it users mock.js. Okay. So basically I'm creating some of the users mock data, and this is going to return. So I'm going to create a variable called const. This is again, I'm writing JavaScript const users is equals to, I'm going to create an array of all that JSON data. I've just pasted one of the object with the name of John, right? And we have all these URLs, all this data, right? And I'm going to use all of this data. Let's add some more objects. I have one now. I'll add another. So I'll go back and I'll search for maybe Dave, something like that. I'm getting data of Dave also. I'm using any hypothetical name here. So I'm just going to copy. I don't know if Dave is watching my video, but that's okay. And then probably I'll go with one, maybe search for Sonia. I don't know if this is going to work. Yep, I have data for Sonia also. So I'm going to copy, and I'm going to paste this one also. So this is how we can create our mock data. Now this is actual data from GitHub, right? But I'm mocking it. I'm creating, because of Java developers, sorry, because the backend developers are still working, they're coding their backend part, and but I'm not waiting for them, right? I have created my data, and I'm going to use this data now. I'm going to export it from here. So let's have a semicolon here, and I'm going to export default, or I'll go with export only, not default, because I might need more data probably. So let's go with export users, something like this. But I need to use this curly brackets. Okay, so now I have my mock data, users data, I'm exporting it. Now we need to somehow have this data inside card list, because card list is going to render the cards. And card list is going to pass that user data as a prop, right? So to have that data, I'm going to import it. So I'm going to import my users from, probably I need to go up in the hierarchy, source folder. So I'm going to use dot slash, then utils, then users mock. So this is how I'm going to get my users data. And if you want to see that, I'm just going to do a console log here, console log and users. So let's see if we are getting the users data here. So I'll go back to my application. I have my console window open. See that? I'm getting my data, right? John, Dev, and Sonia. And this is more of a GitHub data, right? So I have my data. I have my mock data. Now let's see how we can render that mock data here, right? So I need to create different cards here one by one. So let's start a really small here. Let's create just one card, and then I'm going to tell you how we can create multiple cards also. So I'm going to remove this, and I have my data inside users, right? And users is nothing but array, and I'm going to pass this card only one user's data for now, and later on we'll see how we can create multiple cards also. So I'm going to create card which is going to get data as a user is a prop. So I'm creating a prop here which is a user prop which I'm going to pass to the card, and I'm just going to pass one item from the users array. So let's pick user 0, and this will become user as a prop, and I'm passing user 0, the first item in my mock data, this one, the first one, right? So now I can use this inside my card. So inside my card list, I'm rendering card. And if I go into that card, that user, I'm going to get as a prop. So basically we destructure. So we get something like this. Okay, let me start from here. So we get props. And if I do console.log here, console.log props.user, this is what I'm passing. So if I save here and if I come back, see that I'm getting that John's data here. And if I clean up this and click again, this is John's data, right? And probably I'll remove my console.log from here. I don't need users console.log. If I save and if I refresh again, see that I'm getting one card getting rendered. I have removed the other cards, and this is the data. I'm going to use this data, this John's data, where we have this avatar URL, I have bio, I have name also probably. So I'm going to use all that data to render my card, and I'm going to use semantic UI for that. So we will try to render this image and everything. So we will look into the card, how those cards actually look. So I can see here, right? We have a div with the image, and inside that we have given this source URL, and inside content we have the header where we are giving the name. I'm not going to use the exact or all of the syntax from here. I'm going to use some part of it. So let's render the card with the data. So now I have that data in my card props.user, but I'm going to destructure it. Okay. So this is destructuring syntax of JavaScript. So I know I have user as a prop. So I'm directly going to destructure it, that props to user, and I'm going to use user here to render my card. Okay, so moving on, I think I'm going to use card, and inside that card, I have this image. Let's first copy and paste this image part here, and let's format it, and let's change classes to class name. So I have this image with the source of something else, but I don't need this source. I need to change this source to point to my, if I go back in my application, probably I'm not seeing anything, right? So I need image of John, right? The user, the first user I'm passing. So if I look at my mock data, right? Inside my mock data, I have this avatar URL because this is the object I'm passing, right? And inside that, I have this avatar URL. Even I have a URL also, but I'm going to use avatar URL, and this is probably going to point to the image. So I'm going to copy this property from here, and I'm going to replace it here. So let's replace this source with user dot avatar URL. Now, if I save and if I go back, see that, oh God, see the John's picture. He's using the potato, looking nice. See that? Now the image has came, and now let's move on, and we need to render our card. We need to have this name also. So let's find out where we are getting the name. So I'll go back to my mock data again. Now let's find out if we have a name also. So we have login, and this looks like a name, but I have a name property, right? So I can use this name property, and let's put that name property And for that, again, I need to go back to my semantic UI, and I'm going to take this content part, this div, the entire div, and let me paste it here. And I don't need all of this syntax. I don't need description. So I'm going to remove this description part. I even don't need this meta part also inside this div. So I'm going to remove that too. I'm just going to have the content div with the class of content, and inside that I have I need to put another div here. Okay, sorry. I think I'm doing something wrong. This is the div content div, and said that I just need this name. So let's change the class to class name first. And this name I'm getting from the user, right? So I'm going to replace my code, that hard code value, with user dot, I think, what's the property name? Property name is name, use name. And now if I save and go back to my application, see that we got a nice card here with the name. And I think this card size is looking bigger. I don't know how to change this card size. Probably is there a property, or I don't know how we can make this card small. This is looking much bigger actually. Do we have a property for that? Or maybe I need to find out that property. But you can see the card here, right? The first card. Now I can change my data. Let's play around with data for seeing different variations. Okay, so I'm passing this user, right? And where the user is coming from, it is coming from the card list where I have loaded my hard-coded data. I'm in mock data, right? And we are going to replace it with server-side data actually. So right now I'm working with the mock data. So let's try to send the first user. Let's see. Wow, it is def got nice picture here. This is looking beautiful. Let's try maybe two. And we have a picture of I don't know which user it is. See that we don't have a name. I don't know what went wrong for user 2. And user 2 is what? User 2 is Sonia, and Sonia doesn't have a name probably. Yes, I don't see the name of Sonia here. And we have the image, but that image is different. Okay, that's okay. So we don't see the name. But what am I doing here? I'm rendering card one by one, but with 0, 1, and 2 index value. But somehow we need to render all the cards, all the GitHub user card, right? And for that purpose, we use something called a function to render a list of data. So I think this is a good time. Let's take a quick pause here and come back, and we will see how to build a list, because that is the topic I want to cover in my agenda, right? So we'll see how we can make, so we saw like how to work with data, work with mock data, and we will see in the next part of the video how we can build list. So I'm going to cover that as a separate part in the video, where we will focus how we can build list in React. So let's have a quick pause, come back, and we'll continue with building list. Welcome back. Now let's continue, and let's see how we can build list in React, building list basically. So if you see here, right, in my codes, I'm just rendering one GitHub user at one time, but we need to actually render list of users, right? And how can we do that? So right now, if you look at my code, right, I'm using this indexing, right, 0, 1, 2 to render my users. So when I say 0, I'm getting this user getting rendered, the first one. And if you look at my mock data, right, I have 3 different users. How can we render all of these users at one time, all the 3 users? So if you know JavaScript, right, so if we need to show something like, if we need to show list of data, or if we need to iterate through a list of data using JavaScript, we have like couple of options, right? I mean, we have one option, couple of options, I can say. If I come back, so we have for loops, we can use for loops, or we can use map function. So let's see like how we can use for loops. So I'm going to go back to my code editor and I'm going to make it big. going to go to sources and I'm going to add some snippets here. So let me remove my existing practice snippets from here. I think I have so many of them. So let me remove that. And I'm going to create a new snippet here. And let's write some JavaScript. So say suppose I have a variable with say numbers. And inside that numbers, I have different numbers. Say 2, 6, 8, 9, something like that. Now I want to loop through these numbers and I want to create a new array, say suppose a new array with multiple of 2s. Okay, so new numbers, so I'm going to say new numbers is equals to, now I'm going to loop through this array. So initially this will be a blank array and I need to create a new array with multiple of 2. So instead of 2, it will be 4, then it will be 12, then 16, and then 18, something like that. So multiple of 2. How can I do that? So there are a couple of options. I can use a for loop. So I can use a for loop and I can write, so I think let me make it bigger probably. I don't know how to maximize it. Okay. So I can use something like maybe I'll have a let I is equals to 0, then I less than numbers dot len. So I'm basically looping through an array gthlen and then I'm doing I plus plus. This is a bit smaller actually. Let me make it big. Let me try to make it big. Okay, so I'm going to create a new number and I'm going to push that into new numbers array. So new numbers dot push. So I'm going to get my number from numbers array and I'm going to access with I and I'm going to say into 2. This is how I'm creating new numbers array with multiple of 2, right? And I can do the console.log for this new numbers. And when we save this, right? And if I run my program, should see something uncaught new number is not defined. Okay, I need to put new numbers. And if I run, see that I'm getting new array with a multiple of 2. So this is one way of, looping through an array. There is another way called the map function, and that's a cleaner way, a functional programming way of looping through an array and creating a new array. So map basically creates a new array. So instead of doing this, new numbers, I'm going to create, maybe I'll create a new numbers map, something like this. And now I'm going to use numbers. So this is an array function basically dot map function, and map function takes function as an argument. I can write function inside it, right? Functions as an argument, and that function is going to receive each number. So it is going to get this 2, then 6, then 8, then 9, something like that. So I can use that inside that map function. I can use this number and I can just return a new value. So I can say num into 2, and that's going to return me a new numbers map. Okay, so I'm going to just log this new numbers map here, save and run. See that I'm getting the same result, multiple of 2, using the map function. Now you must be saying like, what's the difference between them? And this for loop and this map, they're doing the same thing, right? But I can make this syntax much cleaner. So I can use arrow function here. So instead of this, I can use an arrow function. So I don't need to have all of this. I can just use this. I can remove these brackets, and even I can have my entire code. Even I can remove this return statement, and I can have it in one line. See how much cleaner this one is, right? I don't need this semicolon also. So I'm going to remove it. This is much cleaner syntax, right? It's much cleaner syntax. Even I can remove, because I know I don't need this. There's only one argument. I can just do the number into 2, and that should do the job for me. And now if I save, let me clear the console and run the program. See that? But this code is much cleaner if you compare with this. This is new thing. This is the trend in JavaScript. This is how we write a loop. This is how we loop through an array to create a new array. create a new modified array. So this is the syntax, this map syntax or this map function I'm going to use to loop through my array in JavaScript. So I'm going to come out of my sources now. And so this list, currently I have this list. I'm going to use loop through this users list using a map function. So I'll come back to my card list, and instead of rendering one card at a time, now I'm going to use that JavaScript syntax. I'm going to write my JavaScript where I'm going to loop through users using map function, and this map is going to return me a new array, right? New array. I'm going to use my arrow syntax here, and we know like this map is going to take each independent individual user. So for this, when this map function is going to run, it's going to get this as a first object. Okay, then the next one, this one, and then the next one, this one, something like that. So that we will receive that user as an argument, and now I can create a new user. I can write my JSX to create different cards here. So I'm going to take this card from here and I'm going to put that card here. See that? So, so we are not just doing the calculation like how we did in the numbers case, right? We can create our JSX. So each time, my map function is going to loop through the users array. It is going to give me first user, take the first user, create the card, and this time I'm going to pass that as a user only, right? This user, this one I'm getting here, that user is a user. Or maybe, I just call it maybe u and we'll pass the u here just to make things simple. Or maybe I can call it data and I can pass the data here, something like that. So I'm going to keep it simple, user, because it will be more of a, naming convention, self-explanatory when someone is reading this code. Okay, we are getting the user, we are passing user to the card, and that is the user. It's a bit confusing, but that's okay. So you can see I'm looping through my users array using the map function. I'm getting the user, I'm creating different card. Now, if I go back to my application, I can see 3 different cards. See that? And let me see if I can make it small actually. Somehow this is getting bigger. So I think we are rendering cards. Inside that I have a card. And let me see if I can make this card smaller. Probably I'll go to the card and I'll try to create some styles here. So let me try to write some style here. I don't know if it is going to work. So I'm going to just give my card some width of say, maybe I'll go with 100 pixel and HEIGHT height of say, or let's go with the width. Let's see if it adjusts the height automatically. So I'm going to save this. And now if I go back, okay, now my cards are getting smaller, but they're not looking good. So let me try with 150 pixel, probably how it is going to look. And this is looking much better, right? So I have my different users, GitHub users, and they're looking good. But I'm getting one error here. If you look at here, you see each child, this is not error, this is warning basically. Each child in a list should have a unique key prop. And this is a warning, and this warning you're going to definitely get when you're going to write your React code and when you're going to build list, basically when you're going to render list of elements. So this is going to be very familiar warning you're going to get while writing your React code. So let's sort it out. So I'm going to explain first, like each child in a list should have a unique key property. So this is a child, this is a child, this is a child, right? So we are rendering different card child here, right? Different card here. So it's asking for some kind of key. You should give them a key, a unique key, so that React can identify it and it will help React in rendering it properly. So let's talk about that key. So I'm going to give a very simple example here, what's happening here. So first time, we have a data, right? We have a data of our GitHub users with ID and name, right? So 1, 2, 3. I have 3 different users data, and that's how I'm using a map function to create a new array of JSX, right? So this is the JSX I'm creating. I just used a very simple example here. like a div of Dev and div of John and div of Sonia. So getting the data and creating this list, and this list of data is getting rendered into a DOM. Now, say suppose I add a new data, like in this case, let's come back to the second diagram. Say suppose I add a new user, say suppose Akash, maybe like I go to my this this user's URL and I'll search for Akash. I'm getting data for Akash, and if I take this data, right, if I take this Akash data from here and I update my mock data, see why I have used mock data. This is really easy. I don't need to rely on my backend developers, right? I can change my data. So once I add this, update this user mock, I'm going to see Akash also, right? I'm seeing Akash here, right? But when I add a new data, React is going to create a new list. Okay, so we have Akash here. So Dev, John, Sonia, Akash. It is going to see, okay, first one Dev, create a Dev, Dev with the Dev, create a div with the John, create a div with Sonia, create a div with Akash. And this React list, so behind the scene, React, it does a lot of comparison between the DOM and the virtual DOM. So this is basically a virtual DOM. This React list is a virtual DOM of React. Before React renders into the actual DOM, React creates its own DOM. We call it virtual DOM. So this is a stage of our virtual DOM. Now React is going to do that comparison with the DOM. Okay, I have a div with a div in the DOM, and I have a div. I have a div with a div. So this comparison is happening here, right? Div. Okay, I have div here in the DOM. I have div in my React list, so I'm not going to render it. So why to re-render? Because already dev exists there. Why to re-render it, right? Then again, it is going to do the comparison of John and John. Okay, I have already I have a user with a name of John, so I'm not going to render John there, right? I have Sonia also, so I'm not going to render Sonia. Now next, Akash. Do we have Akash in the DOM? No, I don't have Akash in the DOM, right? But my list has Akash, so it is going to just render. I need to actually copy and paste Akash here. Now this comparison is easy because we have just Akash here. But what if we have span? Inside that span, we have some other elements, right? In that case, doing this comparison for React is going to get very difficult. So if we have that complex DOM structure, right, it will be really difficult for React to render, to do the comparison and do the rendering, right? So in that case, we are going to see some kind of performance lag. We have 4 items only, maybe for thousands of items we will see that performance lag because React has to re-render everything, because React doesn't have a good way of comparison. So just to do that comparison, React is asking us, okay, you keep whatever you want to keep inside this div. So I'm going to just undo this. Keep whatever you want to keep inside this div. Write any complex HTML inside this div. You just give me something called a key. So if you see here, now let's come to this diagram, right? So I have my data. Now this time, while creating a list, I'm passing a key prop to my React code. And that key is like a unique ID for that particular list, for those list of elements. And I can use that ID, right? I have already have ID property here. So just provide that key. Okay, key is equals to 1, key is equals to 2, 3, 4, or any unique number you can use. I'm just using 1, 2, 3, 4 for simplicity here, but you can use any unique key. You can generate unique key, a dynamic key, a random key, and you can pass here, and that should be unique. Now in this case, what is going to happen? Now my list is created with new data, 4 items. My list is ready. Now React wants to render its virtual DOM. This React list is nothing but virtual DOM into the real DOM, the browser DOM. Now React is again going to do the comparison, but this time this comparison is going to happen with the key. Okay, I have something with a key of 1, key equals to 1. I'm not going to render it. Remove it. I have an element with a key of 2. Okay, I don't need to render it. React will say I don't need to render it. I have a element, I have a DOM element with a key of 3. I don't want to render Sonia also. And then it is going to do the comparison. Okay, do I have something with a key of 4? No, I don't have it. Okay, let's render this. So this key attribute, this key property is actually making React's life easier to render its virtual DOM into the real DOM. That's what React is complaining about here, right? Can you pass me that key property so that it will be easy for me to render all of these users? So let's use that key attribute. Let's pass that key attribute inside the card list. So while creating the card, I'm going to pass key property, and that key value I'm going to use actually going to take from the user only. So inside our user, inside our mock data, we have that ID. Where is that ID? This ID, and this is a unique one. Unique ID. I'm not using 12340 right? We have that unique ID. And most of the time inside your list of data, you're going to have this ID. So I'm going to use this ID. So user.id, and I'm going to pass it. And now when I'm going to save, so let me press enter here just for the code formatting purpose. Now if I save and go back, and let's refresh once again, see that? That error is gone. That warning is gone because we have given the key. And I'm getting image element must have alt prop. So this is related to HTML. I'm going to correct it. Now we can see our 4 users, and we don't have that warning. That warning is gone, right? Well, let's fix this one also. So I'm going to put alt inside my card. So this requires some kind of alt. So inside that alt, I'm just going to use user dot name. Save. Now if I refresh, that is gone, right? See that? So we have our list, we have our user list created. The entire list has been created using the mock data. Now this is a time, right? Right now we are using the mock data. Now we need to get away from this mock data and actually connect with the GitHub computer. I mean this URL. We are going to get the data from this URL, and we are going to create our array, this users array, and we are going to render that using our card list component. So let's take a quick pause, come back, and we'll see how we can interact, really do server side, that API communication from React to the GitHub, and load all that user data and render that data inside our card list component. Welcome back. So our application is progressing well, I can say. We can see the users data, I can actually render the users data here, but actually we are not connecting with the real API, right? We haven't connected to actual GitHub API. Till now we are like dealing with hard-coded data. If I go back to my card list, right, we are loading our users data from the user mock. So if you look at here, right, we're using users mock data to render in our application. So let's move on, and now let's learn something really important, that is how to communicate with the server-side API. So I have my notes created for that. So we have already touched upon this topic here in the data section, where I have given you high level how data fetch works. Now we're going to talk about that here. So basically what happens, our React app makes a Ajax request. So Ajax is something different. Think of it like different technology altogether, right? It's not part of React. React is not capable of interacting with server-side APIs. React uses something called Ajax. Ajax is a built-in technology, or built-in technology, I can say, of browser, which we can use to send a request to any server-side API. And now this is nothing but computer to computer request only, as I have told you in the previous video, right? Previous part of the video. So GitHub is think of it's a separate computer where different APIs or different code has been written to get the data. So I can send Ajax request where I'm asking send me the user information, and I'm giving you the username. Like I can give you the username of Akash, Sandeep, anything, right? And GitHub API is going to respond me with that JSON data, something like this. So I requested for Akash data and I got it back here. So basically the technology behind it is Ajax. Now there are a couple of options we have for sending this Ajax request. So let me talk about it. So we have these two options. The first one is fetch, and the second one is Axios, or I can say small a Axios also. So fetch is something built into the browser, or I can say built into the browser. And Axios is a third-party Ajax library. So fetch is feature of the browser. So fetch gives us a capability so that I can pass that computer name and that particular address of that particular URL from where I need to load the data. It's a built-in feature of the browser, but Axios is something third-party. It's a third-party wrapper written over fetch. So behind the scene, I think Axios is also using fetch only. So I can give you the idea. If I go back to my code, and if I type something like fetch here, and if I press enter, see that? Fetch, it has returned me something. Fetch is nothing but native code. It's built into the browser. And now if I type Axios and I press enter, Axios is not defined. So as I told you, Axios is something third party. It's not built into the browser. So we can either use fetch. So if I type fetch, and we can go to developer.mozilla.com. So fetch API, it's nothing but API, which we can use to connect one computer to another computer. So in my case, Sandeep's computer is connecting to the GitHub computer and getting some users data. So we can see the syntax of fetch. There are some examples given here probably. So I think I need to look into using fetch probably. And let's scroll down a bit. So you see here, right? We can use fetch, and we can pass that URL, that address of that computer to load the data. So I'm not going to use fetch because Axios is more popular in a React community. So I'm going to create example with Axios, and I suggest to use Axios because fetch end up writing a lot of code, I believe, and there are other reasons might be, so let's go with Axios because Axios is very popular in the community. We are going to use Axios to fetch the data. So if I type Axios, you can go to Axios, and this is third-party library we are going to use. So obviously this is not built into the browser, so we need to install it. So let's first install Axios, and to install Axios there are like instructions given here. So let's quickly get back to our terminal. I'm going to stop my application, and I'm going to install npm install -- save Axios, and it is going to take some time. So let's wait until it is installed. Cool. So it installed quickly. So I'm going to clear my console and I'm going to start my application again. So now Axios is installed in my React app. Now I can use, I cannot type Axios here and I'll get back Axios instance here because still I haven't imported Axios in my code, but Axios is installed now, and you can check that by going into your package.json file. So if you go back and see your package.json file, you will be able to see this Axios, right? So Axios 0.21.1, this version has been installed in my application. Now let's see how we can use Axios. So Axios syntax is really simple. We can refer the documentation and say suppose now I want to connect to this API, right, this request. So I need to connect to api.github.com, this computer, and I want a user's data, say suppose Akash data, Sandeep data, anyone's data, right? So how we can connect it using Axios? So we can use axios.get function for that. So let me scroll down. We can use something like that, like this, axios.get, and then we can pass the URL, and this is like, sending a request to that particular computer, and once we get back the data, we can handle that data in the then part. So let's write it down and we will be able to understand how it works. So I'm going to close this. Now I'm not going to use mock data. I'm going to disconnect with the mock data. So let me start here. So probably I'm going to use card list to send the request and load the data. So let me start here. So probably so basically I need to convert this card list into a class component because I need to, so just to show you the example, basically I'm going to convert it into a class-based component to load data. I want to go step by step. I want to tell you like what are the problems we are going to face in future. So let me start here. Let's convert this into a class-based component. So I'm going to create a class card list because I need to load the data. So I need to use component lifecycle here. And we are going to refactor this code. I'm just going to tell you this is not a great way of writing code. We start with a simpler way, and then we will go into the level 0 to level 1. So card list extends react dot component. Use this, and I'm going to return. I'm going to have a render method here. So let's have a render method, and inside that render, I'm going to return this. I'm going to control X, control V, and we need this styles also. So I'm going to cut it from here. So this doesn't take a lot of time actually. So we can quickly do that. So render, and inside render, I'm going to have this styles. And I'm going to remove this code for now. And so far so good. So now, just to show you like how we can load data. First of all, we will try to load data using the hard-coded values. I'm going to use component lifecycle, and the best method to interact with API is called component dead mount. So whenever you want to load any data from the server side, you're going to use, this is the go-to method for loading data, component dead mount. So you're going to use this method always to load the data from server side. So now I'm going to use Axios. So first of all, I need to import Axios here. So I'm going to import Axios from Axios, and I'm going to use the same syntax whatever was written there, axios.get, and get is going to take first argument, which is that name of that computer and the resource. So I can tell you here, this api.github.com, this is the name of that computer, and users is nothing but a resource which I'm connecting, and I'm passing it as an argument of a user name, so that it has a bunch of users, right? But I need a data of Akash. So I'm asking, hey, give me the data of Akash, right? So I'm going to connect to this computer. So I'm going to just copy and paste this. So I'm directly going to copy and paste this here inside this. So I'm connecting to this computer. I'm getting the data of users. So now this is a request. This is an AJAX request. This is an asynchronous request. So I can give you example of asynchronous request. What is asynchronous request? So say suppose when you order a pizza, right? So you call up a pizza store, right? And you ask, hey, deliver me this pizza, any pizza, right? So after the delivery, as you said, over a phone, give me the pizza. The pizza doesn't come to you immediately. It takes some time. It takes some time, right? Same thing happens here in case of Axios. This is a promise. So like I'm calling someone, I'm calling a pizza store. So pizza store is returning me a promise, right? They're telling me, okay, I'll deliver a pizza. Give me some time, maybe give me 30 minutes, and I will deliver the pizza to you. And this is the promise from me. So they tell you on the phone, okay, take this promise. Now, step 1 is you're ordering a pizza, right? So it's like axios.get. You're sending a request. You're ordering a pizza. And what we are getting, now this is a method, right? So what we are getting back here is a promise. The axios.get method returns a promise, like the pizza store person is telling you, okay, I'll deliver the pizza in 30 minutes, something like that. So we handle that promise using something called .then function. Okay, so I'm saying axios.get, I'm requesting this computer, give me the data of Akash, and once I have the data of Akash, I'm going to see that here in the then function. So this should be an arrow function basically, and I'm going to get the response here. So this then actually takes the function, and I'm going to print my response now for the time being. Console.log. Let's see what response we get. So now I have my hard-coded data here, but when component is going to get mount, I'm sending this request and I'm getting the data back. So let's see what response we are getting here. So I'm going to save my application, go back, and let me refresh once again, and you'll see that I'm getting the data. I'm getting the data of Akash. If you see here, right, this is a similar data which I have copied and pasted in my inside my mock data basically, right? So now we are actually connecting to GitHub API, that computer, right? And we are getting the data. And how we are connecting to that particular computer? Using Axios, Ajax request.get, name of the computer, name of the resource, and the argument. Give me the data for hey GitHub computer. I'm saying hey GitHub computer. I want to connect with this resource, this component, this users, and I want data of Akash. Can you give me that? Okay, so like I'm calling, right? I'm calling GitHub API and I'm asking for Akash, and GitHub API, it's telling me, okay, hey Sandeep, can you wait for some time? I'll give you once that data is ready and I'm able to give you back, I'm going to give you. So that then is nothing but this returns a promise. And once I have the data, once the promise is fulfilled, right? This is where the promise is getting fulfilled and I'm getting the response back. It's really easy, right? So you can see here how easily we can connect to the server side, to the API, and get the data back. This is a really easy thing. But now I have a problem here, and I really want to start with a problem and then solve that problem, step by step. So first thing I wanted to sort out here is how to load the data. That's why I have converted this card list component into class component. And I'm loading the data. I'm loading the card user using card list. When the card list is going to render it into my DOM, I'm calling this API and I'm loading the data. But the problem is I'm loading the data for Akash. Now, if I want to load the data for Sandeep, I need to change it here. I need to change it with code with Sandeep. And if I save and if I go back to my application and refresh, you'll see the data for Sandeep, right? If you go into this, right? This is data for Sandeep. See that? The login. But I need a way, right? When I'm going to type here something like this, maybe I'll type Sandeep here. I should get the data of Sandeep when I click on add GitHub user. So coming back to my notes, actually, if you come back here, right, and if we come back to app structure, now what actually card list is trying to load the data. But how we are going to load the data? When I'm going to search for it, when I'm going to enter something in the search, I need to send a request based on that search term. So search is actually responsible for giving that term, that search term, that username. And once I have that username, then I need to load that data. But as these are siblings, right? I mean, we have two different responsibilities here. We have a problem, right? How these two are going to get connected. How search is going to get connected with the card list component. When I'm going to search, then only I want to render card list. So if suppose I have some already existing users, I need to add a new user, whichever card or whichever user card I have searched for in the search component. So how we are going to connect these two components together? And I have already touched upon this topic, whenever you see such a scenario, you handle that part in the parent. So now these two components are not fighting with each other. Okay, you give me the search term. Okay, I'll render the data. No, something like that. And these two are fighting. In that case, it's always a good idea to have a container, have a parent handle that situation. So what I'm going to do, when I'm going to search for something, I'm going to hit on that button. When I'm going to click on this button, I'm going to type Sandeep here. And when I'm going to click on add GitHub user, I'm going to send that. I'm going to call a function, a callback function on the app. And app is going to take the responsibility of connecting with this API and return back the data. And once I have the data, okay, I have the data. So this is what's going to happen. I'm just going to draw it once again. That will give you a very good idea actually. So I'm going to enter some search term here. So let me take something from here. Maybe I'll take this and I'll make it small. So I'm going to type like Sandeep. So this is a search term, right? And let me change. So I'm going to, this search term, I'm going to pass it to app. And app is going to interact on server side. So it's going to load some data from server, from GitHub, right? It is going to load the data from GitHub. Now, once I have the data back, so I'll say C and V, I have the user data. I'm going to pass that user data to card list. right, this data, and card list is going to render it. So these two components are responsible for, so search is responsible for giving me that term, and card list is responsible for rendering the data. And who is going to load that data for me? App. So right now I have written the code of loading data inside card list. Now we are going to take this responsibility from card list and we are going to put it into app. So let's have a quick break, come back, and we are going to implement this functionality, this refactoring in our code to make our code beautiful. Welcome back. So let's refactor our codes. So last time, like I have shown you, we were using card list components. I'll get back to my code now. We were using card list component to get data from GitHub API, but we don't need this code here because card list responsibility is just to show the list of the users. So I'm going to I'm going to basically, so we have converted this to a class component just to show, just I wanted to show you like how we can use component lifecycle and how we can send the data. So I'm going to remove this code and I'm going to go back to my basic component only. So I'm going to convert this component into a normal component, a functional component, and it's going to return this div. Okay. And now I'm just going to pass users as a props. So card list responsibilities take the user's data, loop through it, and render that using the map function. That's the responsibility of card list. So I'm going to remove this part now. I no more need a class component. Even I don't need the mock data also. So I'm going to get away from the mock data also. I'm not going to use Axios here, so I'm going to get away from Axios from here. So now card list is going to get the users data, the data which I'm going to load from the GitHub API. So let's come back, and when I'm going to enter something, so what is this styles? Okay, I forgot to put styles probably. So I think I was using some padding here. So let me put it back, styles with some padding of say 10 pixel. Go to save. Styles is not defined. Const styles. Let me refresh. It's still giving an error. Cannot read property map of undefined. Okay, yeah, because users is undefined. So I'm going to pass default value of empty array. This is good. So now I'm going to enter something in the search field. And when I'm going to click on add GitHub user, that search field I'm going to pass back to my app, like I have shown you here, right? So search is going to get the callback function from the app. And once I'm going to search for Sandeep, that value will be passed to app and app is going to load the data for me. So obviously we need to convert app into a class-based component, and search also we need to convert into a class-based component because we need to listen for those input change, right? So let's convert a search to a class-based component, and I'm going to come back with the latest use state and hooks and all, right? So we are going to write all of this code using hooks from the next video probably. Yes, I'm planning for next video where I'm going to cover hooks. So till that time, hold on. So class search extends react dot component, and I'm going to have a render method here. And inside that render, I'm going to do this. Let me copy and paste it here. And I don't need the search now, so I'm going to remove it. Now I converted this into a class component. I need to have a state. It's coming capital state. And I'm going to maintain state for my input, this search input, right? So I'm just going to have a value here. And that value will be empty initially. And I'm going to pass that value here inside my search. So this will be value is equals to, I'm going to use this dot state dot value. And on change, I'm going to change that state, right? So I'm going to write something inline only here. So it's going to get the event object, and I'm going to write this dot set state. So this I have already covered in the previous video, how to change the state. So when you want to change state, we use this dot set state function when we are using class-based component. And I'm going to change my value to a new value, event dot target dot value. So this is how I'm going to see that when I'm going to enter something here in my component. So say suppose I'm entering Sandeep, I can see that Sandeep coming here. Now I have the state. I'm going to pass this state, this value to my app component. And app component is actually going to be responsible for loading the data. So let's see if I need to convert my app into a class-based component. Yes, I need to convert into class-based component because we need state here, state for the list of users. So I'm going to convert this into class-based component, extends react dot component. And here also I'm going to have a render method. Inside my render, I'm going to render my components. So I'm going to remove this. Now search, I'm going to give search a callback of on search. Okay. And I'm going to have that function written here only, this dot on search. So this is just, we can pass function as an argument, as a props to our React component. So search is going to get on search as a prop, and I'm going to write that on search here. So on search will be an arrow function just to avoid this conflict, that this error. And this on search is going to return me that search string, that value which I need, that search string. So probably I'm going to call it term, search term, right? So that term I'm going to pass. So let's do console.log for now, just to see what term I'm getting here, whether my code is working or not. Okay, so let's write this search. We'll go into the search, and here I'm changing the value, right? I'm changing the state. And when I'm going to click on this button, right? This button, I want to call that search. And the search is going to come as a props here, right? So let's have some code formatting here. And I'm going to write on click of this button, I'm going to call this dot props dot on search, and that on search is going to get the value of my state, this dot state dot value. So far so good. So now refresh and let me type Sandeep, but Sandeep is coming from, okay, why it is calling that always when I'm typing. So I'm typing something and it's, so when I'm going to click, I want to call that function, but on search is getting called every time I'm clicking, every time I'm typing. So value on change, I'm setting the state here. So on click, I didn't click on it. Okay, something is wrong with my code. Let me see, because I'm calling the function, but because I'm executing the function, maybe because of that, but I didn't click on the button. Still it is calling. On search I'm passing as an argument here. On search, this is just normal on search function. And term, this term is only getting printed. Search. Let me try this. Probably I'll have a simple function here, just a function, just an arrow function, and I'm just going to do some console.log here. Let me see if it is getting called with some test. So this is how we debug the code. We have some issue with our code. I think this is getting rendered and I'm not executing the function actually. I have just passed function as a value. I'm going to refresh once again. Now it is not calling. Good. Now I'm going to call that function, this dot props dot on search, and I need to pass my state, this dot state dot value. Maybe because of this it was happening. Let's refresh. Now it is not calling Kurt, so I'm just going to pass something like Sandeep and click. On that click, I'm getting the value. So far this is working good. Now I have my search. So we are here, right? If I go back to my notes, now search, now app has passed search a callback function, and that callback function, that search component is returning a value of that search string to the app. Now app have this search string. Now we are going to send this search string to the GitHub API. We're going to get the data back, and that data we're going to pass to the card list. So I'm going to get one user at a time. So obviously I need an array where I'm going to push that data. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my app, and I'm going to create a state value here where I'm going to maintain the state for my users. And that will be initially empty array, because I'm going to load one when I'm going to click on search, that add button. I'm going to load the data for the user. I'm going to push it into array, and I'm going to pass this users array only to my card list as a prop. So I'm going to say users is equals to this dot state dot users. See that? So if I go to card list, you see I'm passing the users, and it's going to take those users and it's going to loop through it and return the card component. So coming back to app, where I have this on search, here I'm going to send the request, and this time I'm not going to use the then syntax. I'm going to use something called async await, and that's a really good thing which I'm going to use. So I just need to add a sync function here. So I'm going to convert this function into an async function, and I'm going to use Axios only. So Axios we need to import first. That will be really similar to what we did in the hard list components. I'm going to import Axios from Axios. And how to send a request using Axios? We use Axios.get function, and this get first argument will be this URL. So I'm going to copy this URL and paste it here, but we don't want to pass Akash, right? We want to pass the value which we are getting as a term, right? That user, right? So I'm going to convert this into a template string. So I'm going to use my template string syntax and replace this Akash with the search term we are getting, right? So I'm going to say term. So every time I'm going to enter something here inside my search, and I'm going to click on add GitHub user, this function is going to call. This is going to send a get request to my GitHub API users resource with a term, and it's going to return me. Now I'm not using then. It's going to return me the user data. So I'm going to store that data. So this is going to return me a promise. So I'm going to wait till I get back the data. So I'm going to say a response. This is async await. Basically, it's a JavaScript thing, and you can learn about it online. I'm trying to tell you. So when async await is nothing but, so I'm going to write await here. So I'm waiting, right? I'm sending this request. I have sent this server side request. Axios.get me the data of this particular user. So I'm waiting for that data. So once I have the response, then only the next line is going to work. So I'm going to just console.log the response here. So this line, this console.log response line is only going to get executed when I have the data from the Axios, right? Until then, it's going to wait. It's going to wait for the data, wait for the response. And this is syntax we use. So the function where I'm using the await to get the data, I need to mark it as async. Okay, so let's see if it is working. So maybe I'm going to type Akash name here, and I'm going to say Akash. Now I'm going to show you a couple of things here. So we are going to get the data back here for sure. I'm going to refresh it once again. And I'm going to open the network panel also, because this request to that particular server side component I'm sending here. So I'm going to type Akash. Okay. And now I'm clicking on add GitHub user. See that? I think the request has, because I got the data, And I don't see the request here because maybe because of something wrong with my network panel. I think, hold on, my network panel is not working the way I want. Let me take it here down, and I'm not able to show that network request because it's not showing. See that? It's here. It's hidden here. So somehow, I'm trying to change the format. Maybe let me put it on the right side and see that Akash. So we have sent the request to the GitHub, that computer, and we got the data back. And that data is actually here. That response is here. So we're basically connecting on the server side and we are getting the, let me minimize a bit actually. Now you see here, right? Akash, and we got the data back. Now we have the data. Now we just need to push this data into this array, this users array. We are going to change the state. And once the state is going to change, my application or my app component is going to re-render and it is going to pass this users data, right? So we don't have the user data. That's why we can't see it here. So let's push that. So I'm going to use a response, and inside response, I'm getting data. And inside that data, I have a data property. So I need to push this data property actually inside my array. So I'm going to use this dot set state because I need to change the state. I'm going to change the state here only. And I'm going to say users. And inside users, I need to push this data, right? So I'm changing the state. So I'm going to take the existing, I need to maintain my existing state also. So this dot state dot user. So basically I'm taking whatever I have existing in my array. I'm destructuring it. Say suppose I have one element. Right now I don't have anything, so it's not going to give me anything. But we are going to have that data, right? So we need to maintain the previous state also, right? And I'm going to push the new data with a comma, and that is response dot data. Let's see. No, I don't need a semicolon here. I'm going to save. We should, if the code is working fine, we should be able to see the user's data. So why not go with Akash once again? I'm going to click. See that? We got Akash. Let's try with Dan. Cool. I got the data for Dan. Let's try with something else. Maybe Sandeep, or maybe let's try with Sonia. See that? Our application is working. It's fantastic. We are getting the data. We're getting the data from the server side here. If you check here, right, we're getting this data from the network. Let me try again, like how many requests are going here. So somehow maybe I'll try to clear it up. Let's try for Sonia first. I'm going to click. You see that the request has gone for Sonia. We got the data for Sonia. I'm going to type Akash, add. You see that we got the data for Akash. Let's try for Sandeep. Cool. You see that how we have refactored our code. We took the responsibility of loading the data from card list. Now card list is just a presentation component just to display the data. Search is our class component, which is returning a value. Now app, my parent component, is taking the entire responsibility, right? It's getting the search term, it's loading the data, it's setting the state, it's passing that data to the card list. So I think our code looks good. Some of the small things I want to cover, like some configuration related to Axios, and we need to cover a ref also, like how to create ref in React. So I'm going to cover that. Let's have a quick break and come back and we'll talk about it. Welcome back. So we are almost ready with our application. I mean, we did some refactoring also. We converted our component from a functional component to class component. We are managing state at the app level. So I think the application is going good. Now I want to touch upon a couple of quick topics, to make our code more better, much better. I would say make it clean. So I want to talk about some configuration which we can do for Axios. So we're using Axios. So let's come back to my code editor. I need to make it small a bit actually. So we're using Axios, right? Axios await syntax here, and we are sending the request to this GitHub API to get the data. Now we are not providing any configuration option here. So there are like some configuration which we pass to Axios by using an object here. But if you look at this code, you can see like I'm hitting the GitHub API using Axios, but I can make it more readable by using something called Axios configuration. So I'm going to tell you like we can go to Axios and we can search for something like, so sometimes we need to pass some configuration object also to Axios to load the data, and I don't want to repeat that code every time. So if I can show you the example here, you see this, right? So this kind of headers, params obviously we need to pass all the time, but this headers, right? And all of these things. So let's make it clean. I'm just quickly touch upon the configuration option which we can use for Axios. So I'm going to use this Axios configuration create function so that I don't need to type this base URL. So say suppose and right now I'm connecting the user service, so I need to type entire URL and then the user's service. Maybe tomorrow I want to connect with connect with what users we have a repo, right? I need to load a repo data, right? Something like that. So I don't need to write this entire URL. So to create that configuration, I'm going to use my utils folder and I'm going to create a new file here called GitHub. So you can see, right? There can be multiple different computers I'm connecting. So I'm writing the configuration for GitHub computer here. So I'm clearly mentioning that. So I'm creating github.js and here I'm going to import Axios from Axios, and I'm going to use that Axios configuration function axios.create, and I'm going to create a new configuration for my GitHub. So I'm going to use this base URL property. I'm going to pass that object base URL. Let me see the syntax. URL, and I know the base URL is this one, so I'm going to just cut it from here until here actually, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, so this is our base URL. I don't need this. I'm going to put when I'm going to call the URL, and I'm going to export it. Export default. Now, instead of using Axios dot get function, I'm going to use github.get. So I'm going to import it here. So I'm going to import my configuration now. So I'm going to import GitHub from, and I am inside a component, right? So I need to do dot dot slash utils GitHub. So now instead of writing axios.get, I'm going to write github.get. So this looks clean. And now I don't need to pass this URL, this entire URL. I just need to use that term. And my URL basically users. So I'm connecting with users and I'm passing the term. So I don't need to write. And this is clean. You can read this code, you can look at this code and you can say, hey, you're interacting with GitHub, right? github.get. So I'm basically working with github.get. Similarly, you can have multiple computers or multiple servers you're connecting, right? Maybe one for, maybe if you're loading some images data and you're using, there's a library called Unsplash. So you can create a configuration for Unsplash. If you're interacting with YouTube, you can create configuration for YouTube. So this looks good. This looks clean. And let's see if it's working. So I'm going to go back to my application, refresh. I'm going to type a Sandeep, add, and this is not working. Okay, let me see what's the problem. So I'm hitting users Sandeep, showing users. Okay, it's hitting localhost 3000 users Sandeep instead of my GitHub. So what mistake I did? HTTPS, this is my base URL instance, axios.create. It should have hit actually that URL, but it's not hitting. So github.get. Okay, I need to add a slash here because it's taking my local host. So let me refresh. And this is how we can debug application live. This video is like I'm recording straight away. I didn't do any kind of preparation. And let me type again. And it's still not working. It's still hitting localhost 3000 and user Sandeep. So let me see. I'm using users. Am I hitting the right URL? User slash and api.github.com. This is what I have. GitHub. And what is GitHub? Export default xus.create. Base URL is https api github.com. This looks good. I don't know why it is not working. Should get this. Oh, sorry. I missed the E here. This is typo. Okay, I'm going to go back again. Let's try. Fingers crossed this time it should work. So I'm going to remove this and Sandeep. And see that? I got a card for Sandeep. Let's try for Sonia. And my requests are working fine. So this is good idea, to create this configuration. Now let me touch upon one last topic, simple topic, ref. Now when I'm refreshing this application, somehow I want my focus to be on this search field, right? Because when I'm typing, I should be able to directly type and click on this button or press enter and that should add the card. So how to put that focus, right? When my application is automatically getting loaded, the simplest way, is to just write autofocus here. Auto focus and save, or probably this should work. I'm going to refresh. Or what's the property? I don't remember the property name actually. What's that? Autofocus. Yes, it's autofocus only. Save. See that? Now the focus is coming directly. But sometimes, now this is one way. I basically want to now React has in theory, React says that you shouldn't access the DOM directly. Whenever you want to access the DOM, you need to use something called refs. But we cannot avoid, right? Sometimes we really need to access the DOM and do something with the DOM. So whenever you want to access the DOM, we can use something called ref in React. So I'm going to use a ref to target this input element. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. So I'm going to use something called, I'm going to create a constructor here. And this is going to get the props. And I'm going to call super and passing my props. Now we can use something called, so I'm going to create a ref for my input element. Okay, so I'm going to call it ref or maybe input ref. And to create a ref, we use a function called react.createRef. This is the function. Okay, so now I can pass this. So this is step one. This is two-step process basically. So step one is create the ref. So we cannot, you shouldn't give like, you must be thinking like to access the DOM, you can give the ID to this element, right? So maybe I'll call it search element. You must be thinking, and then you can write document.get element by ID. We'll try that. We'll try that. Okay, let's see. But how to access the DOM? You can just write input ref react.createRef, and now I can pass this input ref. So basically, I don't know, it is created inside a constructor, whether it is accessible here. So let me try. Actually, we create this ref not directly as a const, but we need to create as a this reference. So this dot input ref, and I'm going to put that. So to access this particular input element, I'm going to write this dot input ref. So now I can access this input element using this name. This is how you access the DOM. So first you create a ref object and you do pass that ref object using the ref property. So now if you want to access this input element, so I'm going to use one of the component lifecycle method here. So I'm going to use component did mount, and inside this did mount, I'm going to set the focus. So how to access this element? So one way, let's try to do this. Console.log. Let's see if I can use document dot get element by ID. So I have already given the ID to that. ref, that is search elements. I'm going to copy and paste. So I'm going to trying to console.log search element. I'm going to save and I'll go back to my application. You see that? I can still refer the input element using get element by ID also, but that's not a good idea, right? Now, if I try to do this and maybe I try to set the focus, so let's see if I can do that. So there is something called focus function, which I'm going to call, and let's see if it works. If I refresh, it's working. So we can use document dot get element by ID, but React always say, because this is JSX, this is not the actual HTML, and you shouldn't use this get element by ID call. Basically, it's a good idea to create refs. So create a ref and then assign that ref, and now I'm going to use a ref to do this focus part. So I'm going to say, so first of all I want to show you like how you can access that ref. So you can write console.log and we will see that input element we can refer here. So I'm going to write this dot input ref and I'm just doing console.log, and let's see if we can get access to that input element here. See that? So inside that ref, we have something called current object, and inside that current, we have this input. We can access the input here. So this is how I'm going to target that input now. So I'm going to write this dot input ref dot current dot focus. And now if I save and go back and refresh my application, see that the focus is there. I can write Sandeep, I can add GitHub users. So this is about ref. I talked about configuration option, and this is all about this video. So I have covered a lot, I think. So we started with the agenda where, we thought of creating this GitHub card app where you can maintain your favorite list of GitHub users. Probably we can save this data on the back end. I'll come up with that kind of videos also. We have covered a lot in this video. I have talked about how to fetch data. We created the application structure first. We talked about how to fetch data. We talked about how we can how to use hard-coded data, because once the backend developers are working on the server-side code, we can use hard-coded data to progress on the UI. We talked about list, we talked about keys, and keys is one of the important topic I have covered, right? While using the map function, we talked about Axios and fetch. We talked about how Ajax request works, right? And I talked about reps also, where like you shouldn't access your DOM directly using document.getElement by ID calls. That's what React says. So I told you like how we can create reps using react.createRep function, and we can pass that ref here to any element. So say suppose you want to access this div element, you can create a ref for that and you can pass as a ref using this ref attribute. So I'm going to end this video here. If you like this video, please hit like button. If you want to follow me, you want to see more videos about on this channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button so that you'll get the notification about my new video. I know people are asking about the hooks. I'm going to come up with the hooks detailed video. Don't worry about it. We will have a practical approach, practically how to use hooks. I'm going to make a video around that. I have plan of making more videos on React, other front-end technologies, and other front-end development. So with that, I'm going to stop here. You take care and I'll see you in the next video.